Imagine this. A war breaks out somewhere in the world. Missiles fly, cities burn, and governments scramble. And while all of that is happening, somewhere, a defense contractor's stock price quietly climbs 12% before lunch. Welcome to Wealth Chronicles. Today we are talking about one of the most profitable and least discussed business models on the planet, the defense industry, and the uncomfortable economic logic of how war escalation can make shareholders very, very rich. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is publicly available financial data. Let's follow the money. The global defense industry generates over $2 trillion in revenue annually. 5 American companies, often called the Big Five, sit at the very top of that food chain: Lockheed Martin, Raytheon Technologies, Northrop Grumman, Boeing's Defense Division, and General Dynamics. These are not shadowy arms dealers in a back alley. These are publicly traded companies on the New York Stock Exchange. Millions of retirement funds own their shares. They lobby Congress openly. Their former executives rotate into government positions. This is entirely legal. It is called the revolving door. Their primary customer? The U.S. government. The U.S. defense budget in 2024 exceeded $850 billion, more than the next 10 countries combined. A significant slice of that money flows directly to these 5 companies through contracts measured in the billions. But here is the fascinating part. Their business model is not just about selling weapons. It is about something more strategic. It is about sustaining demand. Think of it this way. If you make umbrellas, you want it to rain. If you make weapons, you want conflict. Not because defense executives are evil, but because that is just how the economics work. In peacetime, governments look for ways to cut military spending. Budget committees question why they need so many F-35s. Contracts get delayed. Revenue growth stalls. Defense stocks underperform, but the moment a war breaks out, or even the credible threat of one, something changes. Governments panic buy. Allies increase their own defense budgets. NATO countries that were spending 1.5% of GDP on defense suddenly feel pressure to hit 2% or more. Every country scrambles to replenish stockpiles. This is the core profit trigger. Escalation creates urgency. And urgency destroys price sensitivity. When a government is afraid, it does not negotiate hard on per-unit pricing. It just needs those missiles. Now. Example: after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Raytheon's CEO publicly noted that the company expected strong demand for its Stinger and Javelin missiles. Lockheed Martin's backlog, the total value of orders not yet fulfilled, hit record highs. Their share prices climbed significantly while global markets tumbled. That is not coincidence. That is the business model responding to the market signal it is designed to respond to. Here is where it gets structurally interesting. The defense industry does not just benefit passively from war. It actively participates in shaping the political environment that leads to war, or at minimum to continued high military spending. Step 1. A conflict breaks out or a threat is identified. Government spending surges. Step 2. Defense contractors win massive contracts. Revenue and profits rise sharply. Step 3. Flush with cash, contractors invest heavily in lobbying. In the U.S., the defense and aerospace sector spends hundreds of millions of dollars annually lobbying Congress, making it one of the top lobbying industries in the country. Step 4. That lobbying shapes policy. Think tanks funded by defense money publish reports emphasizing threats. Former generals who serve on defense company boards testify before Congress about the need for more spending. New weapons programs get approved. Step 5. More weapons in the world. More tensions. More perceived need for military solutions. The flywheel keeps spinning. Economists call this dynamic military Keynesianism. The idea that defense spending props up economies, creating jobs, so politicians protect it even when the strategic rationale is weak. The economic incentive and the political incentive align perfectly, and shareholders benefit. There is one mechanism that is especially profitable and almost never talked about in mainstream financial media: the replenishment cycle. When a country sends weapons to an ally in a war zone, those weapons get used. Missiles are fired, artillery shells are consumed, armored vehicles are destroyed. The stockpile depletes. That depleted stockpile has to be refilled, and the only company that can manufacture those specific systems is often the original contractor. Because weapons, unlike consumer electronics, are not commodities. You cannot just buy a Patriot missile system from a competitor. The technology is proprietary. The supply chain is controlled. The contractor has what economists call a monopoly of supply, so the government goes back to the same contractor, often with less bargaining power, and orders more, sometimes at higher prices than the original contract, because demand has outpaced production capacity. Numbers: the United States and European nations sent billions of dollars worth of weapons to Ukraine. Shortly after, Pentagon officials were publicly discussing multi-billion-dollar contracts to replenish those stockpiles. Raytheon announced plans to significantly increase Stinger and Javelin production. These are multi-year revenue streams, not one-time sales. Weapons are the only product where using the product creates guaranteed future demand for the same manufacturer. That is an extraordinary business position. One of the most clever strategies in the defense industry playbook is geographical distribution. Major weapons programs deliberately spread manufacturing and supply chain jobs across as many congressional districts and states as possible. The F-35 fighter jet, for example, has suppliers in over 45 U.S. states. That means nearly every senator has constituents whose jobs depend on the F-35 program continuing. Voting against the F-35 budget is not just a foreign policy position, it becomes a vote against jobs in your home state. The politics become almost impossible to untangle from the economics. Then there is the revolving door, arguably the most sophisticated influence mechanism in modern capitalism. Former secretaries of defense, generals, and senior Pentagon officials routinely move to the boards of directors or advisory roles at major defense contractors after their government service. And former defense industry executives move into government roles as well. Each side understands the other's language, priorities, and pressure points intimately. This is not illegal, but it means that the people deciding how to spend the defense budget often have deep personal and financial relationships with the companies bidding for those contracts. The result, even when the strategic rationale for a weapons system is questionable, the political and economic infrastructure around it makes cancellation extremely difficult. The money flows. The industry grows, and conflicts, real or perceived, keep the urgency alive. Now, we need to sit with an uncomfortable question for a moment. Is this wrong? The defense industry's defenders make real arguments. Someone has to manufacture the weapons that democracies use to defend themselves. If Raytheon did not make Patriot missile systems, what would Ukraine use to protect its cities? Defense contractors employ hundreds of thousands of engineers, machinists, and scientists. The technology developed for military purposes, GPs, the internet, microwave ovens, often transforms civilian life. These arguments are not cynical. They are genuinely held by thoughtful people. But here is the wealth insight that Wealth Chronicles exists to give you. The defense industry's profitability is structurally tied to something that causes enormous human suffering: When you see a geopolitical crisis escalate on the news, there is a parallel financial story playing out in real time. A set of very specific companies are becoming significantly wealthier because of it. As investors, as citizens, and as humans, understanding that parallel story is important. It helps you understand why certain political voices consistently favor military solutions over diplomatic ones. It helps you understand whose financial interest is served when tensions are described as more dangerous than they might actually be. And it helps you make more clear-eyed decisions about where your own money goes. So let us recap what we covered today. The defense industry is one of the most structurally profitable industries in the world, not despite conflict, but because of it. War creates urgent, price-insensitive demand. The replenishment cycle guarantees repeat business. Geographical distribution of jobs creates unbreakable political protection. The revolving door blurs the line between regulator and regulated. And lobbying ensures the policy environment stays favorable. This is not a secret. It is hiding in plain sight in annual reports, lobbying disclosures, and stock performance charts. The information is public. The question is whether we choose to connect the dots. If this kind of follow-the-money analysis is what you come to Wealth Chronicles for, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Next week, we are going inside another industry with a business model most people have never examined closely. One that profits every time your health gets worse. Until then, stay curious, stay skeptical, and keep following the money.